The Networking Magazine, proud to be different. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Jibba Jabba, the vocal part of the magazine. My next guest is Lawrence Richards, an award-winning filmmaker, creative producer, director of photography, and CEO of Indievisuals film production. Hi, Lawrence. It's great to have you on the show.
Hi, Sanj. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you. Right, well, everyone is talking about your documentary, Son of Cornwall. The film tells of success, sacrifice, and the cost of living your dream, which I think resonates with so many. Son of Cornwall is a biopic about the life and career of opera star John Treleaven. You're the son, and you take him on a personal and emotional journey down memory lane, exploring what drives him as an artist. And I think that those traits resonate with so many people. What was your main challenge as the director for this movie, for this documentary?
Well, being so close to my father didn't necessarily make it easy. There was quite a bit of pressure I was putting on myself, really, because I wanted to really, do his story justice. I wanted him to be happy in the end. And obviously, there are a lot of people who actually crowdfunded the movie too, so I was a bit worried that at the end of the day, people were going to look at me and say, "Oh, this is a bit of an expensive home movie you've made," or something like that. Because I wanted to make a deeper message, a stronger message than just, "Oh, these two guys are going on a journey together." So I think that was the biggest challenge. But it was good in the end because actually my dad, by the time we went on the journey to Cornwall, had retired. So he was very relaxed and could look back and actually give me a lot of very honest and thoughtful answers that he might not have been able to have done if he was still in the middle of his career. Yeah.
As a son, I guess you had to wear many heads for this documentary. And when you were interviewing him, was it easy to interview a father? And let's put aside the actual documentary for 1 second, because it is a father and son relationship and bond. Did he say, "Don't do that, I want it done this way"? And from your perspective, you had to tell a story a certain way. Was there any conflict within, from telling the story and talking to your father?
My dad trusted me 100%, and he was very honored. And I think he was very excited as well to see me doing my thing. And I always gave him the option to view the cut. And if he didn't want anything, we could discuss it then. But while we were making it, there was complete artistic freedom. And obviously, if we got into a subject where he's like, "I wouldn't like to continue there now," but I don't even think that actually happened. He was very, very helpful. I'm very, very open-minded for the project. He was very honored. He himself would never have hired somebody to do a film about himself. He's more of a private person, even though he had such a public life as a singer. But I think because it was me, he was very happy to do it.
Yeah, it's a lovely story. It really is. I think with every father and son, or every daughter and father, you have this bond and you'd love to tell a story. And I think with me, I would have loved to tell the story of my father. So I think it resonates, really does, on a very big scale with most people. Why do you feel that this story needed to be told? I mean, obviously, we all have this kind of want and need to carry on a history, a tradition, a family tradition. But you actually got up one day and said, "You know what? I need to tell this story." How did that happen? Did you just just get out of bed one day and say, I'm going to do this"? How did it happen?
I actually had the idea while I was studying film in Bournemouth, which was around about 2006. That was when I first had the idea. And then I did actually start as a young film student filming some footage just around my dad's career. He was still very much singing at that time. So a lot of the footage was him on stage or working with conductors and backstage at the English National Opera House doing Siegfried. So it was exciting footage to kind of tell an opera career, but it definitely didn't go anywhere near into the depth that I was able to do much later on, which was thankful to him, obviously being in retirement, because he does speak very openly about a lot of issues that if you were still wanting to be hired, you might not have the courage to talk about. Mental illness and alcohol addiction are very hard things to deal with.
Yeah.
And if you're still in the middle of your career, you wouldn't want to risk that. And obviously I didn't want to hurt my father's career in any way. But then, like I said, being able to do the film, the main bulk of the film, when he was retired, when he was able to reflect, and when he was able to understand that this film was going a bit deeper than just telling his life story, but actually, I think the strongest message the film now contains is that no matter how hard life can get, no matter how depressed you can get in life, that with my father, for example, religion saved his life. I'm not saying that should be everyone's way in life. You can always find spirituality some other way, by meditation, maybe by whatever you want to believe in. But for my dad, it was the church and it was God, and it saved his life. And that was something that I hadn't reckoned with before I started this film. I knew he was quite a religious person, but I didn't actually understand how important God had been for him. And I think it gives people courage to deal and face their demons. And I think that is probably one of the strongest messages in the film. And the other one is just, look towards your father maybe, and maybe you'll find some answers for your own life. So it's kind of like the father-son element. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. You mentioned, and I quote, artists' biopics are literally a dime to a dozen. How did you sort of make this so different? I mean, you're obviously very educated in filmmaking, and I read about you, and you've got a huge list of projects you've been involved with. But how did you make this story so different without compromising this father-son relationship? Was it the way that it was filmed? What was it that made it so different?
I think that we both dived into it together, basically. Normally I'm the guy behind the camera, and this time I had a very good team to follow me and my dad in Cornwall, where he was born. And I think the way we planned it was just to visit very important places in his life. For example, the wrestling fields where apparently his parents conceived him, or the graveyard where his dad lies. Very emotional places, because I knew that they would somehow maybe trigger a good conversation. And then it was just very open conversations and lots of footage. I obviously knew kind of questions that I wanted to ask, but I also free-flowed them as much as possible, because I didn't want it to be a typical interview situation. Yeah. Anyone, like you could have done that, Sanj. You could have sat down with my dad and done like a classic interview. But with me, I wanted to create a dynamic of just a conversation and see what came out of it. And so we did have a lot of conversational footage, I would say at least 10 to 12 hours. Wow. And that's not a very efficient way of filming, but it did lead to a very authentic conversation, I would say.
Nice, very nice. So you've got release dates in the States and here in the UK. When will this documentary be available to view, and where will it be available to view?
Thanks for asking. So actually on Sky Arts in the UK, it's already available. It has been almost for a year now. It was actually broadcasted on Sky Arts in the UK as well. But we now have the official release on Amazon Prime for the UK and for USA, which will be on the 20th of September. Mm-hmm. And if you'd be so kind, we could maybe even post a link where you can actually pre-order a Blu-ray or actually just get a download link, a stream, whichever way you prefer. I'm
going to put that on the podcast link, which will be on Spotify as well. So there'll be a link there for the trailer, but also for the pre-ordering, and also a link to your Instagram so people can follow you and follow your journey with the documentary. So
thank you.
Yeah, I have to ask you, when did you first show an interest in movies as a career choice? I mean, I know that the audience who are listening in are fascinated with what you have done, because this is something that as I mentioned before, that everybody would love to do, sit down with their father and go through history. But in this particular question, I wanted to know how you sort of got interest in the movies and your career choice. How did it all begin for you?
Well, I grew up on stage. due to my dad's career, pretty much. I come from an operatic family. My mother was an opera singer. She also plays an important role in the movie. And my grandfather on my mother's side was also a baritone singer. My grandmother was a violinist. So I did always grow up in that sort of atmosphere. Me and my sister, we would sit in the car singing arias, and it was just our lifestyle, basically. And we would act in these operas and sometimes sing and perform. And I was doing that probably up until I was 17. And I did seriously think about becoming a singer, but then I also thought stepping in my dad's footsteps maybe might not be the thing for me. So I wanted to find something that was similar, because I did love the vibe of theatre, but something new that I could do. I did consider theatre directing, and I did also do some internships with very, very good theatre directors like Keith Warner, who was actually also in the film, who directed The Ring in London at the Royal Opera House. So I did experience that, and I do still to this day find it very, very exciting. But then I met a young man who I was working with at the time. I was just doing like a TV job while I was studying film. And he brought me onto the first film set, and it was just magical. I was only a runner, but I just loved the whole atmosphere. And it was similar to the stage, but different as well. And I just fell in love with it. And I mean, that was the beginning of me saying I'm definitely going to do this as a career. But even before that, my grandfather showed me classics like Ben-Hur or I'm trying to think, Wizard of Oz, things that really, I loved them as a child. So I was already then, I guess I loved movies already as a young child. And then I just decided when I was like 18, 19, it was going to be my career. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, some say that post-pandemic, with the indie sector, that there's been considerable growth. Do you think that this is going to be the new way to produce films, TV series, and that sort of thing? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but the indie genre allows you more creative, creative ability without having too much bureaucracy. You're more in charge of what you do and how you do it. Do you think that's going to be the way that it goes forward, or do you think it'll go backwards in time after, a couple of years of this, and you'll still have that bureaucracy?
It's a good question, a very good one. I didn't call my company Indievisuals if I didn't believe in independent film. And I love independent film. And I think the way we did this project was very good because, like you mentioned, there was no label, there was no production company, big sort of studio telling me what to do. Right. On the other hand, it was all done on a shoestring. So I wouldn't recommend anyone to do it this way, really, because I haven't earned any money, really, to be honest, all the time I put into it. I mean, we'll see how sales go, and I'm very, very grateful for how it's all went. It was a heartfelt project that I wasn't doing for financial gain, but it has been bought by German TV. We'll see how the Amazon sales go. Sky Arts did pay a little license fee to be able to show it. So, and I did the whole thing with crowdfunding, so that was a hell of a lot of work. But I'm very grateful, obviously, to everyone involved, and I got a little bit of film funding and a couple of co-producers that went on board, but we ended up with a budget of about 80,000, which for this size of film is literally nothing. So I basically paid everyone involved and didn't pay myself for a lot of work.
Yeah, it's well, let's see. I mean, it's a very interesting documentary. I'm sure it's going to do very well. Having produced Son of Cornwall, what do you take away with you from this experience? I mean, obviously, it's father and son, and what do you take away with you from having done this?
I think the whole experience has been such a labor of love, and I would be lying to say that it was always joyful. It was a lot of pressure I put myself under as well, and it's quite a long, drawn out project. A lot of the projects I do have a much faster turnover, and this one was one that, like I said, I had the idea in 2008. I began the crowdfunding in 2017. We shot in 2018. Post-production was done in 2020. Then Corona hit. So it was a very, very long process, and I was very relieved to hit the cinemas in Germany. We had a nice tour here and went to 15 big screens, and my dad joined me for that. And it was,
What a moment that must have been.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So the bond between us has got stronger through the film. So that's probably the most positive thing that came out of it, for sure.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I've done it is very fulfilling, for sure, because some people carry dreams or ideas with them and they don't get around to doing them.
Right.
And it was hard work, but it was all worth it in the end. So it's definitely an achievement that I put right up there with probably the most important one I've done in my career. Yeah.
Amazing. What advice would you give to newbie producers? I mean, they're thinking of, coming into the industry now, not following your footsteps precisely, but on the same path. They're thinking about making documentaries, that sort of thing. I mean, what kind of advice would you give to new producers?
Well, there are two routes you can go down. You can go the route I went, with complete artistic freedom, but with financial problems, unless you have a very good partner who's willing to invest in you. Yeah. I think that is a side about filmmaking that you don't think about when you're a young film student. I didn't anyway. I never wanted to be a producer. I really wanted to just create awesome content. But the actual producing and finding financial partners, finding maybe a way to advertise your film and sell it, that is such an important trait to have. So if that's something that you're not skillful at, I would find a partner who is. Try and do teamwork as much as possible. Or if you really are interested, obviously, in doing it on a big commercial level, then I wouldn't start shooting until you have maybe got Netflix on board, maybe Amazon Prime on board. You need to find the right people to write to. You need to pitch the ideas. You need to have meetings. They're not going to read your emails, probably. You need to push for meetings. You need to really get people excited about your film, and it can take years to actually get the financial backing to do it that way. Or like I said, like I did it, I crowdfunded, which was also a lot of work. So I think it's the indie route or the route of finding a big streamer or a big studio to back your idea.
Because crowdfunding's sort of taken over, hasn't it? That seems to be the thing that most of these producers are going for. It's the crowdfunding side of things, and that isn't easy either, is it? It's quite a tough route.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up, I'd say the intense phase of crowdfunding was 4 weeks, but it was more like 8.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm trying to think for the right word. It's like you don't just post something and then it works. You have to actually, I was on the phone. It was literally like an old-fashioned style campaign, but also linked to the internet. Like no one is going to give you money just because your link looks cool. It's I mean, I did actually have some experiences like that where people really got on board with the project, even though I'd never ever spoken to them in person, but most of the people who actually ended up getting on board were people somehow within my network who had obviously heard about the project. And so it's a lot of basically ringing on doorbells and phoning people and getting it going. And I don't know if my crowdfunding was the best example. I mean, we ended up with 20,000 or 25,000 from crowdfunding, which I was quite proud with, but especially for something that personal. Yeah. I think if you have if you had maybe an idea that seems more generally popular to a bigger public, maybe, then you might be able to generate, more than that. But
so, I mean, what's next on the horizon for you? I mean, are you crowdfunding for your next project? Is there something looming in the near future for you? What sort of things are you going to be doing moving forward from this project?
So I am a professional DOP working full-time, a hell of a lot freelance. So my next project's taking me to Tahiti, which is pretty cool, where we're going to be, we've been following a couple who are sailing around the world for a year now, and that's the next stop where we're going to visit them. That's for German TV. So those are jobs where I get paid my daily fee and I earn good money and less, I have less prep, less time consuming sort of things like crowdfunding. I don't have to do that basically. So that's my daily job. I've also finished directing and editing a documentary about a man who fought for the German army in Afghanistan and has suffered PTSD, and he actually last year went on a marathon through the desert, the Sahara Desert in Morocco, one of the most intense hard marathons to do in the world, and he did that to sort of face his demons. So there are some parallels, I guess, to my dad as well. Yeah. And that's coming out soon. It's actually got some pretty famous German actors in it. Til Schweiger is probably a name people might have even heard in the UK. And he's very outspoken for the rights of veterans. And so the documentary, it kind of takes a stance of trying to find out if these veterans are getting enough support from the government or not. And in his case, he's going through a struggle and he's actually not getting the right healthcare that he needs. So it's kind of pointing that out in this film that's going to be coming up. So,
Lawrence, we're going to have to do another podcast, won't we? Just to catch up on what you're up to.
I'd love to, yeah.
That's the thing that, this kind of vibe that I get from the actors, producers, directors that I meet in everyday life. They've got such a wonderful, an outlook for the future. They do many things to make it work. They've got primary income, secondary income, and so on. So it's amazing how many projects they can juggle because of they haven't got those traditional constraints. I think you're one of them. So amazing. Well, look, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule. I know how busy you are. I'd like to personally thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And if anyone after this would like to get in touch, feel free through Instagram or just drop me a direct message. And I'd love to hear your feedback if you end up watching the film.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I'll place a link, as I said, to Son of Cornwall's trailer, Instagram ID, and a pre-order link for Amazon. So to the audience, thank you for tuning in. And till next time, bye for now.